Hello and welcome to another webinar season. My name is Untitled. Over here is our resident architect, Mr. Illés.
Hi there.
It's a new year, it's a new program. So stick around for the details in terms of what ARCHLine.XP 2020 is going to introduce. So as you probably know, there's a lot of new features coming with ARCHLine.XP 2020. In fact, when we were trying to collect them, we realized that one webinar is not going to be enough. So we decided, we decided to have a few. So today's session would be about the visual design and rendering related issues.
Materials, textures. Yeah.
Exactly. And then we are going to have a couple of follow-up sessions. On the 12th of February, we are going to talk about documentation. And I think we have a couple of things we can share about what we are going to talk about then.
Yes. So we will talk about, just as you mentioned about the documentation, there are the tags, like new features for the documentation part. We will also talk about grid design and all sort of other, not necessarily only for the documentation, but also for the workflow sort of things and functions. I don't want to uncover all the whole session. You will see a quick list soon about those new features, but that will be also interesting. And after that, we will talk about some brand new features, which are the MEP features and the lighting design. The electrical lighting systems design, how you can do that in ARCHLine. So those are the three sessions that we will cover, and today let's talk about the visuals and mostly visual things.
That's right. Before we dig in, I recommend that if you have any questions about what you are seeing right now, you can ask it on the right-hand side, and we are going to answer the questions as we go or at the end in one part. So. Visual design, there's a lot to cover here, so let's jump through the whole list in terms of what we are going to talk about. First, you said that there's going to be some talks about material design and how we can use images and textures.
Yeah, well, first we will talk about mostly texture-related things, how you can create patterns, how you can use images from online, and what sort of new things you can do with the textures. The whole idea behind all these features is that you should be able to do most of the most important things within ARCHLine without having to use the third-party stuff for like an image manipulator. Of course, for other professional editors, tools that you can do in a professional editor, you still would need to use a Photoshop or something like that. But for all these regular things that you need for your design, like cropping a texture, make it seamless, recolor the texture itself, those are all supported, and let's talk about those.
You mentioned seamless patterns. Let's talk about why they are important and how we can create them.
I think if we focus on this part, I will use the texture here in this on this part of the model. But I will import the texture first, so we will see what could be the issue with the texture. I have a folder here, and I have previously went online and Googled for wallpaper textures, and I found a nice dandelion texture here, which I think would fit this design nicely, and I would like to apply it on the wall surface. Now you might already know that whenever you insert or import an image from online, you can just simply right click there, or just left click and use the local menu. That's all the same, and you can use the save as material option. Now when you do that, you can save it as a material file. I will save it into my category, and I think I will use the webinar folder here. We did not do that previously, perhaps, or maybe it's webinar 2020. And I just name it like this. This will be the dandelion 000. This is the original. Okay, so I just save it now. Once I do that, I can set up all the settings for this, and I will actually change the size. I need to have this relatively large, so we will see it nice on the surface. So I just do that. I don't change the orientation. I don't change anything else. I just change the size, and I keep it tiled, so I don't want to stretch it, because the whole thing is now that we would like to have a seamless tiled pattern. So I just hit OK, and then now I have this here at the left-hand side. in our library, we should find the materials which is called, I think this was dandelion. So I either go here and try to find the webinar folder, or I just simply search here. Now this material here, let me enlarge the 3D. So this material will be applied here now. I just click and drag and use it as, for example, let's just use it as painting here. And as you can see, it's applied there, but it has obvious breaks, which I don't want. I would like to have a seamless pattern.
Yes.
Horizontal and vertically, it's broken up. I don't like that.
What makes a pattern seamless anyway?
Well, the issue with this one is if we imagine, we don't even have to imagine because now we see that. But as you can see that the top of the image is aligned to the bottom of the other copy, and that makes a break here, and the same applies here. And when this should be the following pattern here, but instead of that, it's cut half on the right hand side. Usually this is what happens when you download a pattern that looks like seamless, but it is not really seamless. If you're lucky, the image itself is large enough to contain the repetitive pattern itself. This is the issue here. And this has a solution in ARCHLine now. When you would like to fix that, you would like to or create a copy which is a seamless pattern, then you can sorry, you can use the local menu, and there is this edit palette. Now, as you can see, it is full with new things. I will first talk about this one, the make seamless pattern. This option allows me to move the boundaries of the image. And let's start with the right hand side. Once I click on the right hand side boundary of that, and I start moving the mouse, see, it is actually making a repetition of that, and this helps me finding the best position where I should align this to be able to make the perfect cut for that pattern. Let me just zoom in a little bit more.
So that's something that you could, like you mentioned, do in an external image manipulation software, but you don't need to do that anymore. Externally, you can do that in the software. So now we have it horizontally.
Yeah.
What's next?
And the same thing I should do with the vertical part. I will use I will just move the bottom crop line, and I will just try to do the same thing, trying to find a place where I can easily find where it should be. I think it is kind of nice like this, like that. And then I just, when I finished, those are the new boundaries, and when I hit enter, the software crops that. And now I can turn this into a new pattern. I just do the same thing. I just go to save and save as another material, and this is, let's say this is fixed
seamless or something.
Or seamless, yeah. So I just save it to the same place, okay, and I just use the same size. This will be 1 by 1 meter, the same size of pattern. Yeah, it appears here in the webinar library, and this is the new one, the seamless pattern. Let's just click and drag and change the material on this object here, like there. Fine, that's perfect now already. So this is how you can fix something like that. You can apply this, of course, on any other surfaces like this.
So you just showed us how to make a material seamless. What happens if I like this, but I want to recolor it somehow? I want to give it a different tone. How do you do that?
As you saw here in this quick jump list, I mean the local menu of this material pattern, there are certain other options for editing the pattern. This is what you talk about is this new feature, recoloring the image. Now it's worth talking about that there is actually a version of this command for the image. I mean the source image, and also a version of this command for the material itself. I will first show what you can do with the image itself when it's not turned into a material yet. So I will just use the recoloring image option, and then see it's actually having a small help here. And then I just select, let's just go with a kind of dim gray, perhaps like this. And then I have a gray version of this, and then I can turn this into a material, and then I can apply it onto a wall surface.
What about colors that you have? How can you recolor things that you already have on the floor plan or on the model?
You mean the materials, right?
Yes.
Now this is the other option. If I just look around.
For instance, the floor I want to recolor to match with the grayish furniture.
Yes. In that case, I just do the same thing, but with another option. As you might already know, that you can quickly right-click on a surface and find that material, so the software reveals the properties of that material. And there is this new option here, which is the adding color. Now let me just change it before I do anything, because if I enable it turns it black.
Because that was the last thing we used.
Yeah,
I think
that was the default now. So if I could just go here and let's just go to, for example, the RAL library and turn it into something beige or something like that. When I do that, the software recolors the original texture and uses that as a recolored version of this texture. If I disable and enable, you can see the change. And you can also see here, and also you can see it on the right hand side. And this way you can actually create multiple versions of the same material. You can make copies of the same pattern. You don't, it's an issue when you find a nice pattern online, but you don't want to use that specific color. You would like to use a different tone. In that case, you just apply it here, either importing as an image and change the image color, or you already used it on a surface and you would like just to fiddle with the colors. You go into any sort of libraries, and I can even make it bluish or gray or some other tone of the brown. Well, I think I just go with a gray tone, so we will see how it looks like. Originally, I think it was a kind of grayish, so this is how it looks like. So easily and quickly you can find a new tone, which is, even when you work with real color palettes, it is something that you can perhaps also purchase. So it's a great feature, and it gives you a tremendous amount of freedom when you work with the textures, which was not there before, right within the software. Previously, for all of these, you had to use an image manipulator.
That's right, and it retains the innervation, the little patterns, so you don't have to find another material. Just use the one that you have and recolor them. Now that takes us to another topic, which is the transparency of images. We briefly talked about before.
Yes.
Before this issue, but what happens if you have multiple places in an image which are transparent? Selecting these things one by hand and adding them alpha channels, that's time consuming. So how do we get a nice result? I think you have a reference image on which you can actually show what we are aiming at. So I think we have those lamps in that model, which have a very special
the ceiling,
which have very special shades which are transparent. Maybe we can pop up the image.
Let me just enlarge this. This is what we are talking about, and we have a photograph. It's from a catalog.
So that's the end result we want to achieve. How do you get here?
Well, now the specialty of this lampshade is that it is actually solid, but it has tiny cuts inside. So it is. If we talk about the material, it is not fully solid, but not fully transparent. It has transparent parts and it has solid parts. So for this in ARCHLine, now there's a feature to actually set up to create a kind of what we call it a transparency map. You can tell the software that this pattern should be transparent at this specific cut or location of the texture. So to be able to do that, we actually have a pattern that we have. You can either download something like that, or this is something easy that you can also design on your own. We have this pattern. This is a regular JPEG, nothing fancy with this, and this is what we will use.
But there's one problem with it. This is black, but we need something like a brownish.
That's right.
So what do we do?
That's right. So now we will actually combine things. We will recolor the texture, and then we will tell the software which part is transparent. So. We already saw how to make it colored, recolor the whole thing. So what I will do, I will just import this image here, somewhere here, and it's on the other screen in the file browser, so I just use that, and that's it. Okay, so now recolor it. Now if I simply go there and I try to use the recolor image option and go with any sort of brown color that I think is cool for this, when I hit OK, see what happens. The black cannot be more of a brown, because this is already the extreme of the color range. White will turn will be kind of washed with this brown, so this is not cool. So there is another thing which I just undid what I did before. There is another option in the edit list, which is for the inversion. You can invert the colors. So when you did that, you can tell the software, okay, now all the white parts will be brown. So I just go here, right click again, and use edit and recolor the image. Blacks won't be changed, the black parts, but the white, the bright parts will be more affected with the color that I choose. And I go with that one, See, now it's much better. It is not perfect. I could choose another color, but you get the idea. And then now it comes to the part when I can tell the software that, okay, the black parts of this image will be transparent. And this is with the same option. I go here, I use edit, and this is the make the image transparent, make the picture transparent. And then what I need to do is I need to click into a pixel which I would like to determine as transparent. Now the black is the one.
And then all black parts would be cut out, sort of.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Those will be fully transparent or transparent as much as I want. So I click here, and then I can define how much transparent this should be. Now it's maximum, so it will be fully transparent, like a cut in the shade. But you can just make it dim or something like that. Let's just go with this one. See, it looks like it is cut, but it is just transparent. And then now I can turn this into a pattern. I can just say, okay, I mean into a material. I can just use the same thing, well-known save as material option, and I can just save it. Let's just save it as Cantaloupe's pattern webinar or something like that. Like that.
This is fine.
Fine. And then let's just say, okay, so now it's a material. And here, it's important that this is wrapped around the surface. I don't want to repeat that. I just would like this to fully cover the whole area. So I won't use tile. I don't know the size. I just would like to use stretch. So it will be automatically applied to the surface.
So you don't have to define the size. You just
this time I don't have to. Okay. So this is what I did. I don't change the other material properties, but of course I could if I want. And then I say okay, and then this is a material that I can apply. Now this material is in my library, in the webinar library, and this is the one. So I just click and drag, and I apply it here. Let's say I would like to apply this on this object. Okay, let's just click here. And see, now it is there, and if I zoom in a little bit more, we can see it clearly how it looks like. It seems like it's kind of pixelated, but when we do the final renders, it will be much better.
I think the important thing here is that you don't have to model this kind of cutouts, but you can use a texture which you made partially transparent. I understand that we have some reference images on which we can show the end result.
Yeah, we actually created a render before to show how it looks like. This is how it looks like. As you can see, the inner part is bright white because it is fully lit with a light source, and then we can see that part right through the shade where it is cut. So this is how easily you can define something. Just imagine something with a logo or perhaps a very specific old style curtain or something like that with all those fancy lace and things like that. You can do that with that.
So the whole point of this operation is to make the end result a bit more lifelike, and that reminds us one of the other new features, and that is in connection with tiling.
Yeah.
Because we all know that ARCHLine comes with a very intricate tiling modeler where every single tile element is drawn as a 3D model. The problem is that if you are using a repetitive texture for that, the end result could be a little bit artificial. So there's got to be a way in which we can make the tiling a bit more random. Mind you that we already have mosaic tiling enabled in the software. That's not what we are talking about. Instead, we are going to show you how to make the tiling pattern a bit more interesting. So show us what you have.
Okay, I think I will go with this one because this is kind of grayish and it's close to what we already have, so it won't be too much different, but we will see the result of what makes a difference. When you use a tiling pattern, just as you mentioned, the software comes with a very, very full and rich feature set and tool set for designing patterns. I will just go with the simplest. I will just apply it as a full tiling on the full surface. I just set up the origin and then the software tiles that. And then now comes the it's kind of obvious that it is artificial because everything is the same. So this is what we would like to change. We would like to add some random distribution, just as the real professional person laying the tiling would do on the real situation. Now this is something that you can either do when you tile or after when you already have the tiling here. Let me just turn the head over here so we can see it much better. I just right click here and I use the edit tiles option, the first one. This brings in the properties of this tiling, and there is this option here, the random rotation of tiles. So the software will look around on this area, and it will randomly distribute the same tiles. So it won't change it to something else. It will be the same tiling, but as you will see, the pattern is randomized.
Yes,
so it is much better for the design, most of the cases. Of course, if you would like to, you can still do the same thing, just as before, but this is something that you don't have to manually go over and add some, and you can use the one single pattern without having to find more and more of the same. You just use the random repetition, the random distribution, and then it will give more realism, more detail into your design, more lifelike distribution.
And talking about realism, one cannot talk about this without mentioning rendering. And one of the ways which can make a render really pop is to enable and work with the bump mapping.
Yeah.
Now I understand that we have some new features in this regard as well.
Yes, for that I believe I should look for this sofa here. Now this sofa, as you can see, the material is fully smooth. There's no bump mapping.
It's very flat. It's not really lifelike. So
yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of more like a kind of plastic feature or fake leather. But now what I would like to do is to add some leather pattern in for this. Now I would like to do that, so I just find the material. And then I go to the properties of the material, and that you might already know there is the bump mapping setting for this here. Now the bump map itself is by default set to automatic. Now this means that if this pattern, like just as in case of the brick pattern there, it would have a texture. From the texture, the software can automatically calculate a bump map. Unfortunately, this is not the case here. We cannot do that because this is just a color. In that case, I could go with any of those patterns here, but sometimes this is just simply not enough. There are like 9 or 10 different settings that you can go with, but the real world is much more rich than that. So you might want to use custom so-called normal maps that you can just find online, or I will show you also how you can create one. And you could use that here, and for that you will find this open file option here. Let me show you what is a normal map, how that looks like.
Recognize it, yes.
So if you go online and search for normal maps, or you have a software that generates normal maps, you will find something like this. Let me just open the files here. You will find, let's just go with this one. Yeah, those maps will look like this.
But what is this?
This is not the material itself. The surface won't be colored like purple and things like that. This describes how the surface looks like, where it is kind of lower or higher or something like that. So it's kind of like a depth map for this. It's not the depth map. Roughness. So it describes the surface. When you feed this into a software like ARCHLine, it will understand what to do with the surface to look like this with your color, with your texture that you have selected. So this is a few examples of things that we could use. Now I will use this pattern. This is nice and detailed. So we will see what the result is, and then I will also show you, if you cannot find a material normal map like this, but you have a nice pattern, how to turn that into a normal map. So let's just go with the ready-made normal map which we found online. This is what we like, so I will just go here and use this option, the open file option, and then I just go with it, which was that I think I used this one.
Yes, that was the one.
So I just select that, and when I click OK, the software turns this into that surface which has this bumpiness, which is not fully smooth. And also on the rendering, of course, it will be much more obvious. So this is how you do that, and then the software stores that, so you don't have to worry about that. It is not linked to the file, so when you save the project and you send it over to someone else, you send over this material property as well.
You mentioned we can also use an image to create bump mapping.
Yes. So now we actually used an image which was already downloaded, which we found there. But how to create one like that? To be able to do that, once you have an image or you have a material that you like, and this is the case which I will use now, you can just place it here or import it and then turn it into something that you like. So here I will just go with a ladder pattern, and I think I previously used this one.
Yes, I think that would do.
So I just click and drag, and I just place it as a raster image, just as I would import it from anywhere as a JPEG file. And as you can see, this picture has surface features represented with the brighter, darker tones, so the software can kind of guess of a depth for each pixels. So when you would like to turn this into a normal map, you can use the local menu and use the edit and use the generate normal map. So this is what happens then. The software turns this into a normal map, and then you can go here and you can say you would like to save it as a JPEG or any sort of image file on your hard drive, and from that point on the story is the same. You just go to the material and browse that image and then use it as a normal map pattern.
So these normal maps are saved as images, so there's no special file extension that you need to be able to.
Those are regular images that you can use, yes.
Perfect. And now we are getting to the sort of the end result, and that is rendering. There is some enhancement in the built-in rendering engine. Mind you, we are going to talk about ARCHLine.XP Live, the real-time render, later, but first let's talk about the built-in stuff. And the enhancement I would like you to discuss is the depth of field. Tell us what it is, where it comes from, and what the end result should look like.
Okay, so for let's first delete this styling here, because I like this surface more as it was before, and I think I will just tweak this material because I believe this is too much glossy.
Yes, I think
it was before. It's too much shiny. You just change the blurriness. Yeah, it's like this. Okay.
Mind you, we are doing this show live, and sometimes when we are doing rendering, it causes some lagging in the broadcast. But hopefully, this is not going to be the case
this time.
Now,
yeah. So I will just render this scene as it is now. So rendering is the same story. You just decide either you go with a real-time render or something other than that. I think I will use a little larger resolution, but I don't want to waste too much time to have a draft.
Fine.
So I just go with the defaults. Only I change the resolution, and then we wait for the result. Now the software, this is a relatively large project. This has plenty other buildings and a little bit of the surroundings. So it takes a little while until the software digests this thing and then passes it over to the renderer. But once that happens, just because I have chosen the real-time draft, I will be able to control this so-called effect, the depth of field, real-time, and find the best setting, and then I can create the final result in any sort of other setting.
What is depth of field anyway?
Depth of field is a means of, when you are in focus of something and that thing is close to you, it's a I don't know, cabinet or something like that, and there is depth in the image with buildings and everything else. Usually the thing in the focus is crisp and clear, but the other things are blurry. So this is what and in between you can focus too far and make the closer parts of the image blurry. By default, this effect is not in action on the image. What we see is everywhere. It's whether the distance is far or near, everything is crisp and clear. Let me just change the exposure a little bit. And then what we want to is to turn on the depth of field to be able to do that. And so now when I do that, I turn it on. Now only this little chair is crisp and clear, and it's because it's kind of far, but not that much far. I'm focusing near. So if I zoom in a little bit more, I like this. I think this is cool. Then we will see that everything in focus, everything in front of us is clear once we see the image clearing up. But everything in the background is intentionally blurry. Those are out of focus. This mimics the behavior of professional cameras or some modern cameras, what we have in our mobile phones. So this is one setting for the near. You don't have to do anything, you just select near, or you can select far, which focuses to the far points of this design, and then everything closer to a camera is quite blurry.
Can you manually define the focus?
Yes, that is the custom, because those are just two settings. Those won't work in every situation. If you would like to tweak it, if you would like to change it, you can change the focal distance. The focal distance is where we would like to focus to. If it's closer to us, we just dial this down. This is where we are now. It's somewhere in between here. Or we can focus very, very far, even through the window outside. So this is how you control that. And then you can change the intensity of the blurriness, and you can change the so-called focal range. The focal range is kind of the area which is clear. And if I just narrow it down very, very much like this, then we will see that there is only a very thin area somewhere in the center which is clear, and everything behind and everything here is blurry. So let me just zoom a little bit closer. So now I have the same effect, but only here. So now everything here is crisp and clear, but everything right behind that is blurry.
That's right.
So this is how you can control that.
I think there's one last thing to add for rendering, and that is the Panorama 360. I understand there's something new thing coming there as well.
Yeah, there is a kind of minor upgrade for the Panoramic 360. Now you can create Panoramic 360 designs through elevations as well. I mean, if you have a multi-story building, previously by definition it was not possible to lead the camera through a stairwell, for example, to another floor, but now it is possible.
Yes. And previously I promised that we are going to talk about ARCHLine.XP Live as well. For those of you who are new to this whole ARCHLine scene, what we have showed you so far is ARCHLine.XP Professional, the design software. Now we are going to talk about ARCHLine.XP Live, which is the ArcViz rendering engine that we have in addition to ARCHLine. There's a couple of things we want to show you. First, we want to show you a few reference materials that were sent to us by our clients, and then when we showed you a few very short videos, we are going to explain you a workflow in Live, incorporating the latest features that we have.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
Let's first roll the videos that we have here. So, mind you, we just had an exhibition in Budapest, which was about bathroom design.
Yeah.
And these materials that you see were submitted to that event, and they were, without exception, were made in Live. The visuals that you see here. Maybe you
designed in ARCHLine and then visualized in Live. Yeah.
The names you see on the screen, these are designers who used our software environment to create what you see over there. So maybe you can tell us a few examples of what you are going to show later on.
Well, what we see on the images, this is what we'll actually go through. First, we will focus on what to do with the design, what to do in your project in ARCHLine to make it most efficient using ARCHLine.XP Live. Then we will cover how to pass it over to ARCHLine.XP Live and how that happens, and what sort of new surface element and what sort of new surface tools there are for your convenience to be able to create spectacular visuals. And we will focus on most of the important parts, and at the end there is a great new feature about the animation, which is now not only covering one single animation that you can generate one by one, but it will also allow you to stitch videos together right within the software. You don't need to have to use a video editor. The ARCHLine.XP Live now is able to stitch together those videos and save them one single animation file, even with transitions. So this is what we will talk about.
Just a quick recap. How is Live different from the built-in rendering engine that you have showed us?
The biggest difference is that the technology that they are using. The classic renderer, which we showed before with the depth of field, that is using CPU and RAM. It's slow, but it is tend to be very, very realistic if you tweak the materials right, if you tweak the lights right. But it takes time, and it's kind of impossible to create an animation in relatively short time because just one frame is rendering very slowly. I mean, compared to what we have here. Because when we talk about that, this is actually the project which we will cover. When you record an animation or when you create an image like that, it happens in an instant. You don't have to wait because this is rendered, visualized on the GPU, which is a very, very powerful essential part of your computer. And if you have kind of a mid-range graphics card, you will be already able to achieve this in relatively no time, recording the video in a very, very, very short time.
So let's see how we achieved this end result, because that's the final video that we want to create from this model. So how does the whole workflow look like?
Yeah, so for the first thing here, that when you would like to visualize a bathroom design like what we have here now, you need to set up the perspective views. And the perspective views that we have here now are all the perspective views that we have saved previously. Obviously, you can create as many perspective views as you want right within the software. But if you forgot to do that, you can do that later as well. We will use these perspectives for client visualization, communication, and things like that. And this is what we will pass through to Live as well. Now, another very, very important part is what we see. We see materials wherever we look at. Those are not only textures, those are actually materials. And in ARCHLine, just as we covered it in previous sessions as well, is coming with the built-in so-called render styles. Now you can tell for each and every material, for each and every surface, that whether it's glossy, whether it's it looks like a metal surface, or it's a ceiling or something like that. If you would like to do that, you just click and drag all those options. Like for example, now I'm just dragging the ceiling option, and then from this point on, the texture won't be changed. Now I'm not changing the material, I'm just changing how the material behaves. So this will be treated as a ceiling, it will be a little bit brighter. Or I can do the same thing using, for example, metals. I can make the floor glossy or marble-like, or an interesting part here that, you know, this is a bathroom, so we have quite a lot of sanitary ware, so we should apply perhaps porcelain on the side of the bathtub,
metal on the taps, and
metal, metal or chrome. That is a different setting for that. You can apply matte surfaces, plastic, glazing is also an important part in this model. So you can just quickly apply them. And again, once again, you won't change the texture. It is just changing how it behaves. And there is one specific option, which is the water. This will make a very big difference in the end result when you tell a surface that is actually water. So you will see it is a very, very visual part of what we will see at the end. So, and of course, this design is having large windows, so the sunlight is very, very important here. You can, just as you already perhaps know, you can change the time and date. It's based on the geolocation, real geolocation of your building, which you can easily set up in ARCHLine. And then whenever you do that, it is right away reflected here in the design as well. But once you hit OK, this is how the software will treat it the same way in live. So this information is also passed through to live.
How?
You will be able to tweak it later, but before we do that, also an important part here is the artificial light sources. We have quite a few, ceiling lights, spotlights, and things like that, which are very, very easy to set up. You can either have an object and attach a light. Also, the software is obviously coming with a built-in library. So you can just enable, disable light sources, change them light source power. Or change their color as well to make them a little bit more warm tone or cold tone. So this is what you can do right within. You can't see the result now here without rendering, but you will see the instant result without waiting for rendering in live once it's passed.
What is that line in your floor plan?
That little line is actually an animation path. I just attached a little arrowhead to the end of the line, so we can see that the animation will actually move from the bathtub to the other end of the part of the room. And this is a very simple animation. I just designed that, so we will be able to see this happening, how it looks like in live. And we will also talk about how to create new animation path in live when we see how beautiful the result is, and we would like to add more. So to pass it over, you use the proper option. Obviously, it could take time when the model is large, so there is a message about that. But once you hit yes, the software will start processing, and sooner or later, after a while, it appears in ARCHLine. And everything that you see here are all the same views, all the same surfaces, all the same materials. Now. And it's worth talking about, these are not only views, these are actually views plus images that you already can select on your hard drive. Those are literal JPEG and PNG files that you can just already send over to your client. So whenever you browse through and you just click on that little folder icon, then you can actually open it up. It pops up as a folder, and then you can use an image viewer to see the results, or this way you can also actually quickly attach to an email or upload to wherever you would like to publish this image.
So right away you walk away with some images that you can already work with. But how do you enhance the visuals further?
We talked about the materials first, so let's talk about the materials here as well. So as you can see, the surface of the floor is glossy. The glass surface looks like glass, and it is because we already set this up in ARCHLine. If we would have forgotten any of those, we can change it here, and even we can change their brightness, we can change their roughness, we can change whatever option we would like to. And it's worth talking about that as well, that when you change a material instance, it changes all the instances. So whenever you change the brightness of a porcelain that applied over there, but it was applied also on the other sanitary ware, it will be automatically changed all around, so you don't have to have a headache about controlling all the materials, all the same materials everywhere. So this is how it happens. But in ARCHLine, in live, there is not only the option to change what you already have, but you can also add new materials. The software itself comes with a continuously expanding large, high fidelity, high quality material library with wooden materials, glass surfaces, even surrounding materials. I mean, for the environment. We will talk about those as well. On the right hand side, what you see here is now it's partially covered by our face, but it's actually a 3-page navigator collecting, you know, all the material libraries and the asset libraries. I mean the object libraries. And now we are working with the glass surfaces. So if I would like to apply this glass surface to somewhere on this design, I just click and drag, and it appears right away. And the same thing I can do with another type of material. So if I would like to undo that and, for example, apply a brighter material, a brighter glass surface, which is there for our convenience, I just click and drag, then it happens right away in an instant. You don't have to wait for the reflections to be calculated. It's all there. And there is an important option. There is this all instances mode option, this one. Which is when you have multiple objects sharing the same material, you don't have to pick them one by one, but you can just apply this, for example, this dark tone material on one, and it will be applied automatically to all the same materials everywhere in this project. So I will just keep this option on. And also here, on this design, it's an important part for what we see here. This is the water surface. Now the water surface is, as you can see, it's already living. It's already, you know, flowing. And it's because the software knew that this is water. I treat it as a water surface. I told the software that this is water, and if I would like to, I can keep it. But the software comes with built-in, ready-made, other sort of type of water surfaces. So I can either apply deep water. This will be more like a blue tone. I can use pool water, which is more likely for swimming pools, or I can just go with this clean, clear water surface, which is, I think, much better for this surface. An important material type here is also the metals, and there are quite a lot of metal surfaces here, so I will just also use a few of them. I will use copper, for example, here, and because I already turned on the all instances mode, those all appear everywhere in the design wherever I use the same material already. And I think I will just change this to something darker tone, so I will just use an anodized dark metal, so this is how it looks like. I think
again the all instances mode is on, and
yes,
that's why the lamps are changed as well. That's
yes. So this is what we have now. So far, so good. Let's just go with the other design parts, which are actually lighting. Now, about lighting, we just discussed that we have the sunlight set up, which we can clearly see. It's bright and daylight outside. But if I want to, I can use the time and date slider, and as you can see, the sun itself is, the disk of the sun is just moving in the background, and it's based on the geolocation of the north direction and so on. You can actually play this sun movement in real time. You can make it faster or slower, and this is how it will look like. So I think it is.
Yeah, you can find a sweet spot in which the model.
Yes, you can easily find which is the best. And if you stop it, then you can just find, for example, an early evening or something like that. I think this. I will just keep this one. Talking about the light sources. The artificial lights play a very, very important role in this project. There's those spotlights, so whenever I select them, I can use that option, which is for the editing the light sources. You can obviously turn them on or off. You can change their power. You can make them weak or more powerful, or you can also change the color. Now is bright white, which is very, very cool, very cold. So if I just select another tone, and then the software will make a change here in the design. It's a very slight change, but it makes a difference in the feeling of the image. And then there's this important setting for the helper light and the real light. And look at the floor now. Now you can see the cast shadows on the floor because I have turned this light source into real light. Now the reason why the light sources are not all real lights by default, because this is costly for the GPU. It takes calculation power, even if it's real time. You have a lot of those. It takes a while, so I don't want that. So I just focus on all of those light sources, only those which are most important, and I want fix all of these to have to cast real lights. It's only important for the most important
We just
ones.
find a few which are very emphasized and use them.
And just as you can see now here, well, I talked about the background, but I never really treated the background in its place. So to be able to kind of spice up the background a little bit, the software comes with built-in plants, trees, bushes, even grass surface that you can just go there and find. There are different tree types here, as you can see, by color and by natural type. And there are those tiny human figures that you can see right next to the thumbnails, which helps understanding what will be the size of this. So you don't want to have a very large tree, but a smaller one, you will find it. And you will be able to click and drag and find whether you like it or not. You can undo the step if you don't like. And then obviously you will be able to move these things around, or just click and place. And whenever you find something like that, either it's a tropical tree or something like that, you will be able to see them from inside the visual as well. And those are those little letters in the names like L, M, and S. Those are like the clothing size.
As an indication about how big
for the size.
is.
Yeah.
I think
so now when we go inside, we can see that the wind is blowing these trees. So these are the really living part of the design, which will have a good effect. So I just keep going and I will just fill the background with some life. And this is how we get to the following part of this design.
I think it's about objects. How about we add some more models to this? Because one of the new things about ARCHLine is the broadening material library.
Yes.
So there's new things being added every now or then.
Yes, and detail. Detail is very, very important. And now we are using a software live which is for details, which is very, very powerful. As you add a detail like this, it is, as you can see, you can zoom in quite near, and it is still crisp and clear and very nice. It supports the visual the way you want, and also not only for interior decoration items. There is also a bathroom part library, more than 130 elements in the software, and we are treating also small plants here. You can add those. You can just move them around. You can find them by color, by this little thumbnail. This helps a lot.
And also there's a search bar for it. So if you know the name, you can just type it in. And
yes,
find
if you remember that there was a sakura or something, then you can just search for sakura and you will find. Now, when you have something placed, whatever that would be, when you select that item, the three axes of the movement appears, and whenever you highlight any of these axes and drag it, you can just move it around that axis. If you move your mouse in between those two axes, as you can see now, two axis will be highlighted, and in that case you will actually be able to move it on the floor or on that surface. The same way, actually, you can enlarge the model, you can rotate the model. All those controls are at the top of the screen. Those also have shortcuts 1, 2, 3, and then you can rotate. You can just click and drag around the proper axis, and then you can just rotate it, or you can enlarge it. You can either enlarge it by only one axis, or you can just keep the aspect ratio and then change its size all around the same way. So this is and the same thing you can do with all the rest of the design, even if they already came with the design. So and just you mentioned that there's a library which is rich and having a lot of content. But what happens when you have something that you just downloaded now and you would like to pass it over to live? You just go back to ARCHLine and you select them and you just go with the option export to live, and this really happens in an instant. You don't have to wait a lot, it's just a few seconds, and then in ARCHLine in live you will see that there's an imported objects library. When you open that app, you will see those two items, and then just as the rest of the items, you just click and drag over the little chair over there or onto the wall surface. And sometimes you need to tweak it because the original orientation was perpendicular to the surface. No worries. You just rotate it. You just move it around. You just scale it the way you want, and it's fine. So this from this point on, it's part of the project.
How about effects?
Well, about the effects, for example, for this candlelight, we have nice candlelight effects, and also for the campfire or the fireplace fire or smoke for the chimney. You can just click and drag. That happens the same way, and then it applies. You just apply them onto surfaces wherever you would like to keep them. You can shrink them, you can move them, you can do all the same thing with just as with other objects, and then you have this appearing right in front of you.
And again, these are moving as well. So.
Yeah, these are kind of moved by the airflow.
Okay, what happens with the images we took before? Because they are outdated. So what do we do?
Yeah. As you can see, those represent the very first images that we have created. But if you can create a new snapshot. You can update them with that icon, and then when you do it with the rest of the items, whatever, you don't have to update all of those. But now we did, and in that case, when you go back to the library, which we talked about, you will see the updated images. So that's the same. You can open it up. You can just quickly have a look at those images, and then you can just save them over to your clients. And then it's very important then, and creating a second, a third, or a fourth image just as takes only 1 or 2 seconds. You don't have to wait, and you can control the resolution of the image, whether that would be 1K, 2K, very large size image. You can control it in the settings of the software.
And what about the animation?
About the animation, just as you saw, we have that animation that we have created in ARCHLine, which is passing from the bathtub, and it's 4 seconds long. So you can have those animations that you already had, but if you would like to, you can and you can save this as an image, a video file in this quality, and in a few minutes. It really takes very short. And then you can also create a new animation. Now I see that this design is very detailed already, and I would like to add some panning cameras, new angles I would like to create an animation from. So I just position the camera to a new location, and I add a new animation with the icon at the left-hand side. So the first position where I was will be the first. This will be the starting point of the animation. So you set up the starting point, the end point. Actually, you can set up in between points as well, but it's enough only to set the beginning and the start and the end point, and then it will automatically create an animation. Now this is very fast. It's only 1 second, so I will change the length to 4 seconds, just as the other one. And then when I hit enter, you will see the playhead of this little player over there. It is jumping to 1 second, and now you can scratch this search bar, and then when you find the proper location, or you just would like to go back to the end and the beginning, and you would like to play it, you can test your animation, and if you like it, you can save it and then into another file. And this is where it comes to a new level when you already have those animations, perhaps 3, 4, 16.
How do you add them up together?
Without this option, you would have to use a video editor. But if you handle these as a sequence, then the software will automatically stitch them into one single animation video file. And you can also enable the transition option at the bottom of this panel. And then when you do that, this is what you will see. So it comes in, and it goes, and then it changes, transitions to the other part, and so on. And it keeps going, and this is what you will be able to record.
And that's the end result.
Yeah.
So mind you, there are going to be new things added to live, and also to ARCHLine. As I mentioned, we are going to have more shows about discussing the latest features. And I think we have a couple of questions here. I think we are going to switch to that. Not really questions, actually praises. People love the seamless pattern. It looks like that's going to be the top one. There is one question though. Is light solid radius implemented in rendering in 2020?
You mean the... Well, I'm not sure which option is this, but actually, if the light source itself is not factory default, the factory default you cannot change. But if it's custom made, you have the control over the light source radius. So perhaps if you cannot control it now, it is because it is a factory default. But if you create a custom, you should be able to edit the value, which is by default 3 centimeters perhaps. You will be able to control that. If not, then mail us and we will let you know how to do that.
That's right. And thank you very much for the attention and the enthusiasm for the new things. And let's see what we are going to discuss in about 2 weeks on the 12th of February. Yep. That is going to be all about documentation. Just to mention a few, we are going to enhance the text and tag options. So if you want to create more detailed drawings, then that will be the way to do it. You'll be able to, we show you how to rotate your drawing. We talk about Project
I like
North
that.
and True North. And some backup options, including Google Drive. So
Google Drive. That's very cool. You will see, and it's very simple and very easy.
It's a major step. Yeah. So depth of field in live. That's a question. Let's jump back here just for 1 second because I like the question. Depth of field. That's one thing that we are implementing in ARCHLine.XP. But the question is it going to be available in live?
Sooner or later you will see it.
Yes. Lots of things happening.
I can say.
So.
Yeah.
But see you all in about 2 weeks when we talk about documentation, and after that we talk about piping and ventilation and MEP and electrical plans.
After this session in the documentation.
That's right. So lots to discuss. Thank you very much again for your attention, and see you on the 12th of February.
See you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.